For my final project, I decided to make a master copy of an Australian Aboriginal cave painting. The idea was I would start with making a sketch of this cave painting, and that after the sketch was complete, I would upload the sketch to Procreate and touch up on it from there, trying to make it as detailed and as close to the original as possible. After that was complete, I would go do some research about the painting and the context surrounding it, and then record myself as I read off the research I had done, all while the time lapse of me creating the masterpiece was playing. And this was the video I was able to create. To start off, I made a sketch of the cave painting, which took about 2 hours to complete. I unfortunately didn't have a good setup to record myself making the sketch, but I did make it with my own hands, drawing it in pencil on my sketchbook. As I sketched, I was really trying to get the proportions as accurate as possible to the original piece, which was a bit harder than it looked. But the process paid off as it gave me a really good jumping off point for the digital version. After the sketch was complete, I uploaded it to Procreate and began my work from there. I was able to semi-quickly get in the actual artwork, but I wanted it to be as accurate as possible, so I began to create the cave wall as the background. This took up the majority of the time, and in total, the Procreate version took about 5 hours to complete. And after I finished the piece, I began my research, all of which will be linked in the separate file I send with the video. And then I wrote a script containing all the research I did, which took about 2 hours in total. And of course, I recorded myself and made the video, which took about an hour. In total, this project took about 10 or so hours to complete. So I wasn't able to find much about this specific piece, but I did, however, find a lot about what this piece is and its symbolism. This art piece depicts what is known as a wanjina, also known as wandjina and wanjina. They are typically found all over the Kimberley region in Western Australia. Wanjina are drawn as humanoid figures, often with halo-like decorations around their head, often painted white with red lines and accents, and always have no mouths. The oldest Wanjinas are painted on rock walls and awnings, but in more recent history, they have been painted on bark, canvas, and other mediums. This Wanjina displays everything you would expect from a typical Wanjina, painted white, red outlines, no mouth, and halo-like decorations around its head. But what even is a Wanjina? They are two things at once: ancestral spirits and rainmakers. It is believed that Wanjinas are not even truly paintings or works of art, but rather physical manifestations of ancestral spirits from the dreaming, which is the creation time in Aboriginal mythology. That when they laid down to rest, they became part of the earth. But when they walked the earth during the dreaming, they descended from the sky, bringing with them rain and thunder. They shaped the land, established laws, and created life. And when they were finished, they laid down to rest, becoming one with the earth and their spirits living on through the land. Their presence is said to ensure rainfall, fertility, and the continuation of life. So, naturally, the Wanjina are of great importance to the Aboriginals. So, these paintings of the Wanjina are one of the few Aboriginal artworks that have been maintained over generations, for thousands of years. Wanjina art is found in clusters, with each cluster in custody and care of a residing clan/family. They are also placed in communal areas that can often be burial sites as well. These paintings are regularly maintained by the clan. If the art was not maintained, it would likely degrade, as the paintings are not well suited to the environment. However, only authorized people of the clan can maintain, touch up, and restore the artworks. These paintings and areas are sacred, and any unauthorized restoration is not actually restoration, but desecration. I actually had a lot of fun with this project. There was something magical about recreating such a sacred and ancient piece of art, and even recreating the rock wall behind the piece, which I thought would be tedious, was actually pretty enjoyable, even meditative. And then I started researching, and I fell in love with it even more. I am obsessed with ancient cultures that I know little about. That feeling of discovery that I get from learning about these ancient cultures, and the Wanjin are truly fascinating to me. For one, they don't fit the typical cave painting we usually think of. Even when discussing prehistory, we are still taught a very Eurocentric view of it, which I think is a shame because there are so many other interesting prehistory works of art that we could discuss, such as these Wanjina. So at first, I thought it looked a little eerie. They look like ghosts with almost blood-red outlines. The proportions, while humanoid, aren't exactly right, which gives them a sort of uncanny look. And the fact that they have no mouth and their eyes that seem to stare at you doesn't help that. But the more I looked at it, the more beautiful it became. We've talked a lot in this class about how if an ancient art piece doesn't have correct proportions or isn't very realistic, it's almost certainly not some sort of skill issue, but rather an artistic choice, a reflection of the culture. And this piece really exemplifies this idea. The Wandjina appear otherworldly and ghost-like, not because the Aboriginals didn't know how to draw people, because they weren't drawing people, they were drawing ancient spirits. These drawings are as sacred as paintings you find in a Catholic church, I would argue even more so. To people who made them, they're not paintings but physical manifestations of these ancient life-bringing spirits. They are so sacred that they must be maintained for the preservation of the land surrounding them, and not just anyone can restore them. Only those who understand how sacred and precious they are, and who have ancestral ties to these paintings can restore them. I've seen plenty of religious art before, but this one feels like it is so much more than just religious art. I'm happy with the work I've made, and I'm glad that I learned about the Wandjina and a bit more of Aboriginal mythology. I've barely scratched the surface, and I already want to learn more. And the fact that these pieces of art are continually maintained by the descendants of the original artists, they've been doing this for thousands of years, really makes it special for me. I just hope one day I can make art that has a fraction of the meaning that these Wandjina carry. But until then, I am happy to admire and learn more about these sacred spirits.